My name's Jonathan Stubbs. I live on the Sunshine Coast. I'm on the disability support pension. I'm also a prison chaplain. Married, have 3 kids. I was 35 years old. I used to work for Brisbane City Council, so I had ambition to moving up the corporate ladder, so to speak. More in the area of teaching, adult teaching, training and assessment. It was a Thursday evening, just travelling home normal. There's no street lighting on that section of the motorway, and I think it was around a bend. I didn't see anything until my headlight was on the object in front of me. So I don't know, I never saw a truck, I never saw a trailer, I never saw whether it was the side of the truck or the rear of the truck. I'm not talking a semi-trailer here, I'm talking a Pantech size truck. And my last memory was, I'm not going to make it, because I've swerved in that moment of thought. I've swerved and trying to avoid the object, the truck, and that's where this side's copped all the brunt, the collision. What the truck did was continued to cross the culvert, the median strip between the south and north lanes, and he then took off the other way to avoid going through the toll. So the cameras and everything would have detected had he kept going, but he's crossed to go the other way. The police never found him or her. I was due home and my wife realised there was, I think, 8:30 and I still wasn't home, so she rang my gym partner. No, he left ages ago, he should be home by now. So my mate and his wife had come round because it was her birthday that night. So she stayed with my kids, and my mate and my wife backtracked the way I went to work, came across the bike, and the police were there. And they told my wife to stay in the car, and they said, called my mate out and said, look, it's been taken to the PA, but the ambo said he wasn't going to make it. So, sorry. So he's gone to the PA thinking he's dead, but he didn't tell my wife. And then get to the hospital. Doctors came out. He's expecting dead on arrival, but I think the doctors came out a bit later. They'd put dye up you to check your spine and everything else, and they just basically said, oh, someone's looking after your husband, because I wasn't paralysed. I should have died, but didn't. But anyway. I lost the use of my arm. I still had my arm intact. The amputation came 4 years later. Lacerated my throat, that's why I talk with a husk. Head injuries from the collision. Trying to think, just battered, black bruising, all this was all smashed. But even when the police came to visit me, they just said, oh, you look pretty good for a dead man. So they were very surprised to hear that I'd lived. What I do remember was, over the course of the next 6 years, undergoing operations, all the legalities of the accident. Need to understand, because it was a hit and run, I had no third party to claim against. To me, the whole time of operations, all the legal side, everything took 6 years. In that time, I remember having a purpose because I wanted closure. When it was all done, that's when it actually hit me, because I realised this is it. This is how I'm going to be for the rest of my life. It's not that I'm an invalid, but yes, I have a disability. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm reminded of the fact. But that's when the reality of the accident mentally hit me, because every morning you wake up and you see yourself, you're reminded. My wife, it was difficult for her because we had 3 young children. I ended up being the 4th child that she had to basically nurse and look after me, but her strength helped me to become, well, in a way helped me get my life back as well. For me, the biggest thing has been the mental change. I've always been a very strong, independent type personality, and I've had to deal with depression. What I've come to understand is from the trauma, so whether it's post-traumatic stress disorder, whatever you want to call it, it all forms part of depression. The other part that happened to me was the head injury. So the police said to me, if you weren't wearing a full face, you would have died. I don't quite understand why, but maybe, I don't know, the protection of it all around. But I did have swelling in the brain, which affected my short-term memory, but also chronic headaches. So I had to go back into hospital for a little bit. Probably the biggest and notable factor of my accident is my arm. Straight away from the accident, I lost the use of my whole arm. I severed 4 out of 5 nerves to the vertebrae, main nerves. I've had 3 operations: the elbow, the shoulder, and then the hand. So 4 years, virtually after the accident, I had my final operation, which was the amputation. But I remember a big low, because it's the whole thing of getting something taken off you that you know isn't coming back. Most people have heard of neuropathic or phantom pain. So it's like you still, even though it's not here, you can still feel it. You know, I'll go to, sometimes in bed I've gone to thinking move my arm, and I've grabbed my wife's arm. And she's like, what are you doing? What I did find with my accident, I did tend to withdraw. And I became very blunt with people. I've always been, what you see is what you get, take it or leave it. But yeah, I think people did struggle, where I was just being blunt out of what was going on inside my head, not putting them down, but all of a sudden, oh, I want to go home now, where I would never have just blurted things like that out, you know, just so very blunt in how I felt. And my wife, I suppose, had to adjust to that. She sort of understood, and she'd have to then later explain to, you know, friends, oh, you know, I think it's all part of what's happened, the head knock, all that. For my kids, they saw a father who was fairly active to all of a sudden just being in bed, even for the last 15 years, struggling because of medication. I heard this song, and it's the hymn, It Is Well With My Soul. But it was sung very powerfully. It doesn't matter what happens with our physical. My soul, my spirit is eternally intact. Came back to Brisbane, had the amputation. 2 weeks later, flew back to Hobart, and my friend's wife came to pick us up. We all sat in the car, she turned it on, was this song, It Is Well With My Soul. And I looked at her and I said, have I told you that story? And she goes, what? So for me, the first song I hear when we landed and got in the car at the airport in Hobart was this song. So again, I just felt confirmation, it is well. My journey, when I looked into the author of the song, he lost his son, he lost his children on a shipwreck. I've learned that there's always people worse off than you and better off than you. And that's one thing that I've learned. Yes, this is my journey, it's different to someone else, but it doesn't make it better and it doesn't make it worse. I went to hear my brother-in-law speak at his church, and he spoke on forgiveness. And I came away, and I've never forgotten, because he presented the sermon in such a way that it helped me to understand that forgiveness is for me. I've never fully understood the process of forgiveness and how it sets the individual free. I forgave the truck driver that day. I don't hold any bitterness or resentment. I certainly have been angry and frustrated, and at times, thought ill of that person, but I understand that I was set free from that moment. You've still got to go through the physical and the emotional and the mental, but I believe spiritually I've been strong because of that. But yeah, it's liberating.